Hi, my name is Ibukun Naiju. I'm a third year PhD student in McGill University in the Biological and Biomedical Engineering program. Been in Canada since 2021, so 3 years.
My name is Tolu. I am a PhD student in electrical engineering and also McGill University. I have been in Canada for 4 years now.
My name is Rosa Lekanachi. I am a fifth year PhD student at the School of Physical and Occupational Therapy, doing a PhD in Rehabilitation Sciences. It's my fifth year. Yeah, it's my fifth year here in Canada, Montreal, Canada. And yeah, I'm from Nigeria, by the way. So we'll start with talking about homesickness when you came to Canada.
Mm.
I know you guys, I think both of you came around the pandemic time, so that was interesting to to have experienced.
In my case, it's different because I didn't come to Canada from home. So I came from America and I had been there for quite some time, almost 5 years. So I guess coming to Canada was just it wasn't something I thought about in terms of being homesick. It wasn't
Mm,
I wouldn't say that. I think it's something I'd already become what's the word, immune to. So it's just not anything that I was thinking about at this point because I think I had learned to live with it. So
mm.
moving to Canada was so in that regard, I wouldn't say that I felt homesick.
Interestingly, I had a different experience. I was homesick and it lasted for a while. It lasted for maybe up to maybe throughout my first year, really. I
Oh
was just in
wow.
and out of this headspace where I kept thinking at some point, like, why am I here? Who do I know? What am I doing? And the first 3 months, because I had coursework, it didn't hit me. But the
Mm,
moment I had just my research and myself to live with, oh my goodness, it really did hit me. And the reason I know now that it's better is because I can look at how often I speak with my parents. Not that I don't speak with them, but then I really, really needed that human
mm,
connection. And my mom would tease me when I called her, oh yeah, I know you're missing home. I'd be like, yes, I am. I just needed to hear your voice. But yeah, it was tough. How did I cope? I think it helped that I started to meet new people and I started to have more friends and I started to know my way around. And I also think it helped me to not be in a hurry to know everything at once. So I remember I didn't even, my first outing, so to speak, was maybe 6 or 7 months after I'd come into the country. I remember
mm,
that was the first time I went to a museum. I wouldn't say that was my first outing, but the first time I went to a museum for sightseeing, which was to
mm.
me a higher level of outing compared to just grabbing groceries, going to
Yep.
school, coming back. Like the same as Tolu's experience, I did not come directly from home. So it was quite different for me. I'd experienced my homesickness while I was in America. So when I came here to Canada, as much as there was still some form of homesickness, because I still had not seen my family for almost 5, 6 years at this time when I moved here, it was more of the suffering continues. And yeah, that's how it felt for me. And I think how I coped was with my friends. I had a friend who was already work schooling here with me, and luckily for me, I was moving while she was here, so it was like a great transition to at least one familiar face, and someone that would help me walk through the process of school and getting accustomed to the area, and all that good stuff. So having Whitney here in Canada in Montreal was very helpful. And as with family, I was looking forward to, seeing them. I was planning trips. The first did not happen because of COVID, but the second had to happen in 2022 eventually because I just couldn't do it anymore. But I think friends were one of my biggest survival piece, I guess. Yeah,
I think
that's so
even
true. Go on,
like
please, Tora.
based of yeah, it's again coming to Canada at the time that we came to Canada was was an especially bad time, right, due to COVID. So you come in and there's just nothing, and there is no. And I remember I feeling very isolated, because I was isolated. And it was something that I used to think, oh, it's not a big deal. I can be alone. but for 4 or 5 months on end, not talking to anybody, it becomes I remember, so at the time I just begun just taking walks and just trying to, I would go to the field. I didn't know anybody. I'll just go jog and just even just to be away from my room and from all that isolation, just even watching people and just, I don't even know. But I would say that's how I dealt with it. So I think my experience wasn't homesickness, it was just more of the isolation, a different kind of, yeah, it was the isolation that I had to deal with coming into Canada. So I can
Mm-hmm.
see how like having friends and having that kind of support will help make things a
Mm-hmm.
bit better.
Yeah, that's so true. It really helps you because you start to feel more integrated into the society compared to
Mm.
before. And you, if I may say, you look back less. Like before, it used to be a whole lot of this would not have happened to me. And maybe because we're also coming from Nigeria, where I say this a couple of times that when you're in Nigeria, you don't even have to look for community. You're automatically integrated into some sort
Oh
of
yeah.
social constructs,
Oh
whether
yeah.
through family or friends or people you went to high school with or uni with. You just know people, even people you don't want to know,
Yeah,
right? But
you
all
don't
of a
have a
sudden you
choice.
come here. Yeah, you come here and you're just alone in the world with yourself. It
Mm.
can be very tough. And I think the flip side also, the question I would like to ask in converse to homesickness is on another topic that kind of relates to how you experience a new country because sometimes you struggle because it's just emotionally difficult, or sometimes you struggle because it's financially difficult. So how did you guys cope when you came to Canada, financial wise, and how are you coping now?
I will
First,
go first. I think for me, I was more of figuring out I think before I moved here, I started like asking questions and all that stuff. And it's always been my MO. Whenever I'm moving to a new place or I'm getting to a new environment, I want to figure out like what's, attainable, what's doable, what can I get here? Can I get a job? And I think also my experience is going to be different because I already went through this to get to America. And then when I moved here, I already knew like a preamble to how things worked. So for me, first was settling out a funding situation, and my supervisors were great enough to give me something to start with, at least the first year. After that, I started figuring out, okay, work. I remember that my first 2 weeks in Canada, in Montreal specifically, I went for a conference. I had scheduled this conference to happen, and I also scheduled interviews for jobs because I was heading out like I need something, and I'd worked as a resident life advisor back in America while I was in school. So I was looking out for this kind of jobs when I was here as well. So I looked for that jobs like that, and luckily for me, I kind of got like a call back, for an interview and all of that. And I did, and I luckily got the same job. But I like one of the first two jobs. The other job I applied for was a job in the university, where I was working as the grad assistant in TLS, teaching and learning services. And I also applied for that, and I got it almost in that same 1 month of being in Canada, like in August. So I kind of situated myself in August time. But I think the biggest issue for international students is they don't know what is attainable. Like there's no, it's the thing where in universities as big as McGill, you have to look for what you want. If you don't look for it, you will not know it's available. Or if someone doesn't tell you that this is something that you can get here, you would not know about it. So for me, it was more of searching, looking, trying to find out, okay, what's here, what are the jobs, what's the site. I remember that my caps have been my future. I don't know what they used to be my caps before workday before. And I
Oh,
would
okay.
sleep, yeah, I would sleep on the site and search and search and search. And that's where I got both jobs. Like the two jobs that I had when I first came here, it was from that side. So I always like search and look and apply to everything that I seemed that was right. And when after my first 2 years here, and now I started dropping things because I needed to focus to school. And then I told myself, okay, I need to work only on campus so that all my working is on campus and the weekend I have it to myself. So that's how I kind of moved. One thing that I always say is the information is out there. You have to search for it. If you don't search for it, you will not know. If you don't ask questions, you will not know. And yeah, that's how I kind of survived until now. I don't do so much anymore. I've kind of dropped everything because I need to focus on writing my thesis.
Yeah.
But the big thing is actually looking out for those jobs, sleep on the university's website, try to figure out like where does the job exist, what is attainable, what can you do, knowing all the rules. What I'm it's 20 hours a week. Okay, I'm going to do 20 hours here, 2 hours here, 1 hour here, like that. So that was my thought process and my saving grace all through. And now, same thing that has been helping me to now. Do not close your mouth and just always search. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I had a wildly different experience because I came in with some funding as well, but I erroneously thought that, oh, this is just funding. You're not gonna have to pay tuition and any of these things, right? Because I was thinking, based off of this funding, there's no way they're gonna ask me to pay tuition. So, and again, in America, it used to be that at least most PhD programs that I was familiar with considered your PhD as a job in the sense that so you don't pay tuition. It's something that was waived. So I came to school, I remember, because I was having it took some delays with my immigration documents, but I came maybe some 5 weeks into the semester. And we go through the whole thing, and I was about to leave. She's like, "Oh, by the way, you need to pay your school fees," and I think she's joking. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Yeah, no, it's only $20,000." I'm like, "Is this a joke?" So I go talk to my supervisor. He's like, "Yeah, you need to pay." So it's like, "But I have to live. What's the plan here? I have to pay rent. I have to eat, And they're like, "Yeah." So I have done everything in Montreal. Truly, I've done all the jobs that you can imagine. Um, I worked in a warehouse. I did so many things. But the thing is, I didn't have to do any of that. It's just that I didn't even know the information. As Rose said, you need to find out what your options are. And, I just dove in, I was like, oh, I mean, it's Canada anyways. You can always find something to do. And it was the mindset that I came in with. But I could have just asked. There was the Office of Financial Aid. There was I could have talked to my supervisor to say, hey, I can't survive this type of things. So for my first year, I mean, I'd also come in with some savings. But I think that the mistake that I made was that I just didn't exhaust the options that were available to me because I didn't even think about it. Truly, I just so moving into my second year, you talk to people. I mean, I think the most important thing to do is to actually talk to people. So you come into this program, and I think maybe one of the drawbacks, again, coming during COVID was the difficulty in linking up with other PhD students to figure out, hey, how are you guys coping, and things like this. But eventually I was able to talk to financial aid office, talk to my supervisor, and like, oh, you can do this. Oh, we have this that's available that you can do. And it's like, oh my God, I didn't have to do this. I didn't have to do that. So in retrospect, yes, I should have talked to people and, I know it's almost a cliche to say like a problem half shared is half solved, but it is true. It's good to even just the act of talking helps. But you never know what somebody might know, and I think that in retrospect, that's the lesson that I took from it was to always always know what your options are.
Yeah. Interestingly, I think mine was maybe a little bit of Rose's and a little bit of yours because I knew my funding situation before coming because I had to declare my funding situation to apply for my study permits into the country. So I knew the only difference was that I did not know that the money wasn't going to come all at once. And I did not know that the school fees was going to be due. For example, for the fall semester, I didn't realize that you could only defer it to like maybe October or November, and after which you would have to
You have
pay.
to pay. Yeah.
So you can imagine my surprise when I I was served a bill of like 19,000 or something for first year, for first term. And I realized, okay, even if I defer it, I have to still pay it up by maybe November. And I resumed literally September. I was really concerned. I remember writing to the program officer at the time, or like the person in charge who had helped me out when I had questions regarding my application for my study permit. I remember writing to her saying, oh, is it possible for me to get some of the funding in lump sum just so that I can pay up my school fees? She said, oh, that there's a maximum way that there's a maximum amount they can give, and that there's also a way that they have to structure the payments, that there's not much flexibility. So that was tough. I remember that I had to eventually reach out to my parents, who reached out to someone that they knew who loaned, it was so complex, who loaned some money to me here in Canada, and my parents had to help pay up in Naira because the person needed Nigerian currency. So that happened to me that first term, and it was really tough. But after that first term, my eyes, after you have suffered, your eyes are opened. So my eyes were opened, and I knew, okay, so what are we going to do for the next bill that is coming? How am I going to make plans and try and save up and just really work towards paying it up? So I remember it was really, it was a period of extreme frugality because I was trying to save a whole lot so that I could pay up the next bill. Fortunately, summer term was easier, so I was able to recoup back. But yeah, what you said about finding out what is available and how to pay it, that helps. Later on, I got to know from one of my colleagues who was also in similar shoes and was really panicking about how to pay the first term fees, that you could have even just spoken to your supervisor and have asked for your stipend to be given to you earlier on rather than later. And I didn't know that. I was glad that he knew it, so it saved him the emotional panic and
I can
stress.
imagine.
But I did not know. So yeah, it's so true how all these things happen, and you could have a better experience, or you can't have a better experience if only you know better, right? But
Oh yeah.
we're living
Oh
to
yeah.
tell the story, so
And I think
Yeah.
another big part is that I feel bad for our supervisors because some of them don't even know any of this thing. For them, this is like new territory that they're, getting into, and they cannot even help you. So it's always nice when you have people who have been through this and that can explain to you and tell you, oh, this is what you can do, this is what you can do. Most of us even know we can even speak to financial aid and be like, oh guys, oh, I don't have money
Truly.
for this right now.
Truly.
I'm trying to wait for my funding from or even speak to accounts and all those things because they can actually help you and say, okay, we know that your funding comes from here. We'll give you more time to pay and this. It's kind of hard when you don't know things. So like the big thing is the information, actually knowing how
Yeah,
to
for sure.
navigate things.
And I think maybe like coming in as maybe new as international students, there's a certain mindset that you feel like you shouldn't push your luck, or you shouldn't ask for too much, or you shouldn't. It's a kind of mental barrier. I mean, I don't know. At least for me, it's like, oh, I'm already getting this funding. I don't want to antagonize anybody. I don't want to do this. I don't want them to say, um, I don't know. It's a kind of maybe, don't push it too much, but it's just something that I feel like if you talk to people and they you hear other people's stories, it's very easy to break out of, and you see immediately that no, I have options, and I deserve not to suffer. Anyhow.
No, really, because otherwise you're just going to have a really tough time, and it can be very emotionally stressful to just keep thinking about how you're going to pay $5,000, and you sleep and you wake up and you think about it and you don't know, you have no clue. It's very stressful, really. So it's always good to ask people questions. So just to ask, do you think that having lived in the US helped you when you were moving here? Do you think there was any barriers or any challenges to moving to a new country? In your case, from the US to Canada.
Well, I generally, because Canada and the United States are such similar societies in the sense that, so it was as though I had just moved into another American state. Don't tell that to the Quebecers, but it just felt, that's how it felt. So it wasn't like, so I wouldn't say that I felt, like whiplash, or it was just it was relatively easy there. I didn't experience any culture shock. I didn't experience any of that. I think that um, being like living in the States for so long definitely helped me like adjust to Canadian society, relatively quickly. Um, I think the only thing that was a bit of a problem for me was French, moving into Quebec, because I knew relatively little about Montreal. I mean, because in my head I was like, at the end of the day, it's a North American city, right? You know, you'll be okay. So I think, yeah, that actually I remember was a bit of a shock because I came in, I tried to take the metro, and I understood nothing. I remember just getting lost. I took the metro all the way to Code Victory at some point. I didn't even know what I was doing. Because there was a problem with the metro, but I didn't understand what they said, and they wouldn't say anything in English, like nothing. So I remember, so that was the only thing that was a bit challenging at the beginning. But I would say that having schooled in the States was a big, big, big help in adjusting to life in Canadian society.
I would say the same, that it helped me a whole lot. I think I did not understand, and following what Tolu said about the French, I didn't understand how much or very French the system was, or that Montreal was. I was like, oh, they speak French. Okay, sure. If that means to be bilingual because it's Canada, right? And I come here and everything is all French, but I did have a little bit of French knowledge, so it wasn't so jarring for me, but I had to like learn. But having lived in America for 3 years, like I did, was very helpful because I did not get that initial culture shock that everybody usually gets when they move to a new country. Two, I did not feel like, oh my God, I've left home, but rather felt like, well, I've left home for a while, so you just continue this journey. So I kind of assimilated and got into the space quickly. In the educational sense, there was not so much of a shock because it was almost the same system I was coming from.
Interestingly, I think mine slightly different. So I had studied abroad prior to my program here in Canada, but I returned to Nigeria, right? So I came to Canada from Nigeria, and I think for me, the first transition or the thing that hit me first was the time difference. It was a real thing for me because I realized very quickly that I was in a different space when by 4 p.m., I remember that by around 4 p.m., 5 p.m., nobody to talk to on WhatsApp again. My parents, my friends back in Nigeria, everybody had gone to bed or they were preparing to go to bed. And this was when I first moved and I didn't know so many people here or even anyone at all, right? It was so, it was so isolating. I don't even know how to explain it to you guys. It really hits me very slowly. Like all of a sudden, I was just wondering, wait, why is nobody reaching out to me? And then I realized, oh, they're all asleep.
Oh yeah.
And then they wake up and then you are asleep and it's a whole cycle. But I guess after some time, I just decided I would go to school, try and come back shortly around the time where I knew that, okay, for sure people had gone to bed. Maybe try and cook or do something else during that time and then go to bed as well. So I needed to form a new routine for my own self. Otherwise, I was just going to be there feeling sad about what I couldn't do anything about, right? So that was my experience, I would say. And now it's better because now I know people here. So even if things go still on the Nigerian front, I still have people that I can communicate with here. But then it wasn't easy. Yeah, interestingly, since we're talking about this whole moving stuff, I'd like to ask you guys what your experience has been with learning French since we are in Montreal and we live and breathe French at this point. There's no excusing or running away from it. So yeah, what do you think?
For me, learning French has been, I would say, interesting. Today, in my taxi down to this place where I am about with friends, I was speaking French with the taxi driver. He was asking me how much I paid for the Uber on Uber, but the words just were not communicating to my brain. But when he eventually said the words individually, I understood. And he was like, oh, he asked me in French where I was from. I explained. And he was like, how long have you learned French? So I was like 4 5 years now. And he was like, you're doing great. He asked me where I was from. I said Nigeria. And he was like, I've not seen a lot of Nigerians that speak French. I might be his first or second. And then it dawned on me that I'd been learning French for the past 4 5 years. And now I can run a whole conversation without a problem, but I still struggle with the Quebecois accents and the Quebecois like intricacies, the fact that some people have like, and they don't use clear words. So in my learning French, I think it's been a progress and it continues to be a work in progress in the sense that I think I have just not given up on it amidst my ups and downs. I've shared my experience with you guys before, how the first time I tried to speak French was one beautiful Saturday afternoon that I was in a taxi, because it kind of culminates today because I was also in a taxi like this, and I tried to speak French with the taxi driver, and the taxi driver goes, "Do you speak English?" And I said, "Yes," because he also, the same thing that happened, said a word that I was not conversant with, but it was a word that I knew in French. And he was like, "Then don't practice your French with me, go practice with your friends." And I remember that it was so depressed. Like, I felt so sad that day, because I felt like it's not like I'm trying to undermine your language, because I understand how someone will feel if somebody's playing with the language and they're trying to speak it, but they don't understand it. So I get that. But I wasn't trying to undermine his language, but I was trying to practice my French. And to him, it seemed like I was joking. But today, having been able to speak and hear someone say, "You're doing great," it was quite okay. It's been a daunting process, because having to take classes with school, the whole PhD for the past 5 years, has not been great. I won't say it has been great. I remember I took classes with McGill. I took all the classes, there's a healthcare line kind of classes you take for French. I did everything from the beginning to the end. And I also did some classes with MIFI, which is the Administration de Integration de Francisation, something, something.
Francisation et
Yes.
intégration. Oui.
Yes, exactly. The Quebec one. I also did a bunch of classes with them, and I'm back on classes again. I think I've just been every year I've tried to take a class at least, or two classes, so that I improve my vocabulary and improve my speaking. And in my day-to-day, I integrate French with my friends, with my partner, and with every other person that's around me, or in my day-to-day activities, like going to the grocery store and all that stuff. So it's been quite interesting learning French. And I think as much as some parts of Montreal are acceptable to you practicing, some parts are not. And you just have to find your community and be able to use it. I would say it's been an interesting process, but I'm grateful for it, because now I feel much better and stronger in French. Yeah, that's my experience.
And you have become someone who speaks, I don't know how many languages now, because you
Oh
speak
my
English
God,
and
I'm
French, and then you speak two native Nigerian languages, and it's intimidating. Plus, her
no, no.
French, her Netflix is in French. This I can say.
All
Her
the goal for
Netflix is
2024
actually
is
in
to turn my
French.
phone though to French, but I'm not bold yet, but I'll do it for the end of the year. Fingers crossed.
You're the
Fingers
one
crossed.
person I know who watches your Netflix in French, and that is an achievement, right? So that's
Oh, I try.
that's a good thing. When I say it's an achievement, it's a good thing, because we're coming
Thank you.
from Nigeria and we've
Mm.
only known English, so it's very daunting. But yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
agree
worth
with
a
you.
try. Yeah, Tolu, how about you?
I guess when I came here to Montreal, as I said, so I actually thought, oh God, French is a much bigger deal than I anticipated. But to be honest, is like if you speak English, you'll get by for sure, at least in Montreal. So I guess that makes room for a lot of complacency. Because I'm like, I really don't have to learn French. At the beginning, I actually come in with a goal to learn French. Just, I remember I started taking a class with actually the government class. I had to stop. I had to stop in the second weekend because I just couldn't do it. With my program at the time, I was still taking courses. Honestly, I was trying to find my footing in because I remember coming in and I remember it was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of I think they might have made a mistake. I don't think I'm supposed to be here. For the longest time, truly. And it was so I tried French, was like I can't afford this distraction right now. It was something that I cut off. Um but it was just something that had always been at the back of my mind to do. And I wanted to do it. I know in my second year I applied for the immersion program at McGill, but they said that my French wasn't up to the level to go into an immersion program. So you have to be at a certain level before they put you in an immersion program. And they said I wasn't there. But I remember at the beginning of so at the beginning of 2023, it was my resolution I said I was going to do it. Honestly, just because, and I wasn't doing it because I wanted to stay in Quebec or anything. It's just I feel like, there's always going to be a section of society that's going to be close to you. If we're going to, um, and you don't even know that it's there because you can't know that it's there. And there's just a lot that you could be experiencing that you're not experiencing. There's a significant section of Quebec society, or even society at large, that is closed off to you because you don't understand this language. I mean, it's a whole culture, you know. Um, so I remember at the beginning of 2023, I said I was going to go into French. I committed, I signed up for a 6 credit course at my school. Um, and I remember it wasn't, you know, there was a lot of self-doubt looking at it. I'm like, I mean, I see people that have gotten good at it, but I don't know that that's going to be me. You know, like what's going to happen? Am I wasting my time? Am I ever going to get to that point where I'm, you know, I'm comfortable? I don't even know. I'm not even sure what that was about. But I started to realize, oh my God, okay, I'm understanding things a little bit. Like it can be done, right? It's not impossible. And for me, that was all I needed, truly. That was the motivation. I was like, oh, if I can get to this point, I can get to any point. And so I took another 6 credit course in the next semester, in the summer. Uh, and then, well, I'm taking one more, but oh my God, it's just compared to where I was from beginning of 2023 till the end of 2023 was such a significant difference. And I think just even knowing that in itself was a motivation to just keep going, right? It's just, it can be done, and you can get better at it. And I don't know, it's just knowing that really helps you get better. It's a weird thing, but you know, that I
So
guess for
much.
me, that's how it works exactly. So it's just that so seeing that I've gotten better just told me that I could get better. I noticed, however, that I still struggle with confidence. You know, I still struggle with, oh, so I will not even speak French because I'm afraid that I'm going to say it wrong, or I'm going to, you know, I'm going to, um, I don't even know. So I would just defer to English. And as I said, just living in Montreal leaves room for a lot of complacency. If we were living in a really, you know, in a rural Quebec city, I don't think that, you know, if maybe even in Quebec City or Gaspésie or whatever, you know, any other place that didn't have as many English speakers, maybe I wouldn't be as so it was just this thing that I am still trying to work through, in that I think that I've gotten to a decent level that I can actually maybe even converse with people, but I just don't do it. I and I know it's just this confidence that needs to be built, and I want to take place in like conversational workshops and things like this, and just these things that would force me to be uncomfortable, and things that would force me to, you know, because I think just putting ourselves in that position would allow us to grow, and that's that's what I mean. I would say that's what I'm still dealing with in my French journey. It's just confidence, and you know, and I think it's just something that can be worked on, so that, you know, I can get to that point that I can actually, um, I'm not so worried about, you know, I mean, it's okay to make errors, and you know, it's okay to, you know, and people are generally more understanding, but well, I guess it's just something that I'm working on and trying to get to that point that I can overcome that barrier.
Thank you. You know, you're an inspiration to me as well, because I saw you start learning French, and I saw that, hey, he's also from my country. If he can, then I can try. No, really, it really worked like that for me, because I thought this is someone like me who has had all their education prior to now in English and is getting themselves into this uncomfortable position of immersing themselves in French. And I thought, okay. And I know he's also faced with similar stressors like I am, right? We're going to the same school. The program is tough, and I thought, okay, you know what, I can try. But unlike Tolu, I didn't personally do a 6 credit course, because my own program, my own research work wouldn't allow me. So I took, or I still take, the government classes, and it's daunting to have to leave school after a full day's work and go for an additional 3 hours of French every other day of the week. Or like I do that Tuesdays and Thursdays, but it has also opened me up to a new world. Reading is better there was a time where it harassed my brain, like I told you guys. It really harassed my brain, and I felt like I was sleeping and thinking in French and waking up and thinking in French. But after some time, I started to feel like, okay, there are some resettings going on in my brain. And now I can accommodate the English side of things and then the French side of things, and even start to make some connections between both languages, and sometimes even like some connections between French and our native language, and just try and work things out little by little. It's really challenging, especially when you have a full-time program on your hands and it's not like there's any, or there is motivation to learn French because of course you open up a new world to yourself, but it's very challenging when you have that and then you have your program and you have your life that you're trying to figure out, and you're just in the middle of all of that trying to really make the effort or put in the effort to do better or go somewhere further. So for me, I still struggle with the verbs. I'm trying to learn the conjugation and how to just say the simple things, present tense, past tense, future tense. Then we'll build it up from there. So we're still in that headspace, but I I see that when you actually put in the effort, you see the results. You start to feel like, oh, okay, I didn't know this before. Because before I would walk in the metro station and not even know the story of things around me, right? But now I can look at an ad and try and figure out what you're saying,
Exactly.
and yeah, sometimes pick a little thing here or there from something I hear either on YouTube or something. So it's nicer and it's better, and it's a room, it gives you the room to improve yourself in a whole different way. So it's
Mm.
challenging, but
And
we can.
and I think it's sorry, just to add one more thing. I think it really doing things like this, like learning a language. I think it also you learn a lot about yourself in the process too, and maybe about how you learn, and because it's very nonlinear. Like and it's just now I see the benefit in. I mean, in Rose's house, the Netflix it's in French and all that. So and it's like, oh, you watch YouTube, and when you do all these things, and it just you see how like just putting yourself in these environments like really does help you learn. But yeah,
Hmm.
very interesting.
Yeah, it's so true. What you said about how it shows you how you learn. I remember that the first class or the second class I attended, I remember the teacher in my class was asking me if my name was really on the attendance because I knew nothing. And I was so discouraged for like the first couple of classes. I used to be so afraid to go to the class. But after some time, I just told myself, you know what? Even if I just show up there, I've overcome one fear, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen when I enter the class, but the mere fact that knowing all the fears still, and I showed up in that class. That's a miracle. That's step one. Then step two is okay, try and make the most of your time since you're already here. Step three is okay, if they give us assignments, try and do them. And after a while, I started to feel better. But yeah, I can't forget how he asked me if, like, of course my name is here, but I knew nothing, right? So it was right to ask. Speaking of which, I want to kind of detour and ask you guys about how you have maintained your friendships, old and new. Maybe more the old ones since you moved here, because we even know it's in popular culture. People talk about how, oh yeah, so when your life evolves, you move on, you cancel the people who don't matter or anybody who can keep up to speed with you. Just, like no negative energy, no negative vibes, move on with your life. So how would you guys say that you have managed old friendships, and how are you doing with new friendships here?
I'll tell you, it's one of those things that I really struggle with, and I think, oh my God, I need to do better in that regard. It's just especially the old friendships. I think maybe it will be easier to talk about my time in America than, oh, well, maybe it's about the same thing as it's been in Canada. It's been incredibly difficult because there's just a barrier of there's the time zone, there's there's this, that, everyone's like, oh, you were in the morning, they're at night. It's just a different mindset almost. And it's really difficult to like maintain the friendship. I mean, it's easy to maintain a friendship, but maybe what's the word I'm looking for? Like such that it's at the level that
Sustain it.
has exactly, and it's at not, and it's not just a background thing. It's not just a every once in a while we'll say, how you doing? How you doing? Things like this. Like it was really, or I mean, it's still really something that I struggle with. I like to think my friends understand, because I mean, I think, they're also in. So I think we've all just maybe got into this space that we understand how it is, and I mean, something that I know that you and Rose have somehow just do so well, in that you just, like your friends, you keep them. I mean, it's a constant thing in your lives, and I tell Rose all the time that, like I think that you're incredibly, I mean, it's also that you need to, I guess, find your people, like find your friends that, because as you can imagine, it's not easy, and you have to find the people in your life, or I don't know, hopefully you have people in your life such that they make it easy for you and you make it easy for them. I always tell Rose that she's incredibly lucky. She has this friend, Whitney, and they've been able to get to this point in their lives that, they've been able to maintain or sustain their friendships. And it's like, I guess it's something that you have to be really intentional about, such that, because these things just have a way of just fading into the background if you don't intentionally, and because you think, yeah, they're my friend, it'll be okay. But I think that you just really need to make it, like actually make it a priority, such that you're able to maintain those friendships, like actually put in effort. Like it's not something that's gonna happen organically. They're not here. They're in a different place, and there has to be conscious effort, I think.
Mm. Yeah, I think for me, I remember an instance where one of my really close friends, when she moved to America from Nigeria and she started her PhD, she actually stopped one time to tell me, I don't know how you remained friends with me when I was still in Nigeria because the workload is so much. I can't even bear to keep up with anybody. It was really funny the way she said it, right? But I personally knew that I guess that's one area where I was a bit more aware that I needed to prepare for. When I was moving from Nigeria to Canada, I knew that I was going to a different time zone. Of course, I didn't foresee how it was going to affect me, in that people wouldn't be there to speak with me when I go back from school and had the time for them. But I remember that I tried as much as possible to walk two clocks. I still do, in fact, right? And I say that. So in my head somewhere, I know the time here, but I'm almost always aware of the time in Nigeria. And that's because I think of it and I use that as a backdrop to know, is this person back from work? Do I think they will have the time to talk to me? How are they doing? Is today the weekend? Are they going out or are they going to be indoors? And another thing I've done is I make a habit of sending, would I say, conclusive messages. So I try to ensure that I'm a bit proactive in helping you not feel the need to feel guilty about not replying me. So it's more, I just wanted to check on you. I hope you're fine. I hope everything is going on well. Please take care of yourself. Stay well. Bye. And I leave that as a message, or I send a voice note. But I try as much as possible to understand that people's time may not be in demand, may not be mine to demand anymore, given the circumstances of our lives now. So you schedule a call with your friends and you plan the time. But now I do that more just to keep in touch with some people. But if I can't even schedule a call, I just leave a voice note quickly. Once I think of you, I just leave a voice note, because give me 5 minutes, I might have forgotten. So I try as much as possible to do that for closer friends. But I also think the flip side too is recognizing that because you're a human being, you can't keep up with everybody. There comes a point in your life where you have limited emotional energy and you can't give it to everybody. You just pick the people that you know, okay, these people have been there for me. I value these friendships. I think they have goodwill towards me. We've grown together, even if the growth is different. So someone else might be married with kids and you might just be running your program or married, you just have your life, right? But you see that there's goodwill in your hearts towards one another. I think once there's that, you can just go forward with peace and understanding, really. Because if you try so hard, sometimes I know this has happened to me with a friend that when I was trying to get her to like check on me more, do this more, do that more. And because she couldn't keep up with that, I felt disappointed and it affected how I view the friendship. So I realized, okay, because you need to actually step back, look at this very, very like generously. And is she going to be available? Think about it. If it's not the case, then manage your expectations, readjust how you look at things, and open your heart also up to the new people around you, right? If you find out that someone else who might have been there for you before isn't really able to be. So that's my experience. Rose, what's your take on managing your old friendships versus new friendships?
I don't know if I did a great job at managing my old friendships, sincerely, because by the time I left America, for America, everybody was busy. Everybody was getting married. Everybody was moving on with their lives. It was all transitional for every one of us. So I feel like we just kept up with who we could keep up with. And then whenever anyone reaches out, we're like, oh my God, I'm grateful that you reached out. How are you doing? How's family? And I think that's how I coped. I've always had a friend that everybody knows, Whitney, that I knew from NYSC, who, luckily for us, I don't know how we did it or what we did or how, I don't know if God just blessed me specially, but we did not do anything special. We just kept in touch. I remember while she was in Nigeria and I was in America, we never talked every day, but we reached out, and it's like that friend where your conversations never end. It's not a hi, how are you doing? It's a, oh, can you imagine this happened today? Like that happened tomorrow. And then when the conversation ends for the day, it never ends. The next day, you're just continuing from where you stopped. I was able to keep up with it. And think another thing is I'm thankful for social media, because social media is another space where when you followed yourselves on Instagram, when they post, it was more like a hi, oh, it's good to know you're good. Like, hey, that commenting part always made me feel like, oh, I'd reached out, I know they're fine, right? And I think another thing that I did was I did not over expand my friend group. So it was very easy to manage. Even with new ones, I try my best to not to do too much. Because I find myself like wanting to be friends with everybody, or be like, good with everybody. But like my friendship in Nigeria, I think we just kept it on a cordial. Whenever we reach out, we know we are reaching out and we're catching up. And the ones who are made, the new friends I'm making, I make it an intentional effort to reach out when I can. And I think one thing that I take away from my friendships is anybody that reaches out to me and says, you've not talked to me in a long time, I kind of stay away from such people, because I feel like it's now becoming like a responsibility of, if you don't reach out, I will not reach out, that kind of thing. So I try to have friendships that we know we have this, communal understanding that no matter what, we're still there for each other. I think that's how I've seen to manage. We have like a good understanding of what our friendship is and where it lies. So nobody feels some type of way, because we're all busy. Everybody's advancing, growing, moving on with their lives. And sometimes it gets very difficult, and I get it. So yeah, I think that's how I've been able to manage, reach out when I can. And then social media has been very helpful to manage these friendships, I must say.
It's interesting though. One person uses social media, one person is like, nah, and then someone is in the middle.
Yep,
We know ourselves.
that we do.
Yeah, so I think this one is just like a trivia. So it's two-sided. What's the most pleasant surprise about life in Canada versus what was like it hit you hard and took a while for you to get used to it? So a big shock versus a very pleasant surprise.
I would say that it was not a pleasant surprise. It was okay. Like it's kind of hard to answer, but I think it was just okay, this is where I'm at now, and we have to deal with it, I guess.
Interestingly, though, I think one of the things I like about Canada is the fact that I look at the country as an open space. When I mean and what I mean by open space is I look at it as a place where you really can reinvent yourself. You really can find a new path for yourself. Or maybe I'm speaking from that perspective because I'm doing a program now that is different from what I did back in my undergrad in Nigeria. And I remember that some years back when I had thought about applying for the same program, I remember checking a university's website in America, and they said, "Oh, if you don't have an engineering background, you can't do this program." And I remember then just feeling sad, like, "Oh, I really liked this program, but it's a shame that I can't apply for it because I don't have what they call their prerequisites." So for me, coming to Canada and doing that same program, being able to do it, being able to go forward at it is something I'm always going to be grateful for, because I look at it as an opportunity to just reinvent yourself, find a new path for yourself, really chart a new cause for yourself, and really just find new people from all walks of life, get to know them, get to see life in a whole new way, right? And build relationships, lifelong relationships that you would have for 30, 40, 50 years from now, right? So
Yep.
that's
Yep.
how I look at Canada, or that's one of the beautiful things I find about the country, that it's an open space. You can just live and have a great life and find beautiful meaning for yourself. Yeah. So in
Mhm.
terms of this shock, well, now it's not so much of a shock because now we're dealing, but the weather was very harsh. Truly so. When I first came, I had lots of unpleasant experiences, and I guess I undermined how cold it was going to be when I was coming from Nigeria. I knew it was going to be cold, but I didn't know it was going to be as cold as it got. So that was difficult. That was really difficult. And at the time where I was staying was not easily accessible to school. So I had to walk about 15 minutes to get to the metro, and then walk maybe another 15 minutes from the metro to school. And uh, there were days where I really reconsidered whether I should go to school, and I felt very cold, right? Just being in the the blizzard for those minutes, you feel really cold. You're trying to get adjusted, but you're only in the train for maybe 10 minutes, and then you get out again.
Yep.
Yeah, that was tough, but now it's getting better. I was very fortunate to have a really nice roommate who helped me out with a lot of stuff in terms of what to buy, where to buy the boots and the jackets and all those things. So that helped, and yeah, so I think that bit, but overall, the good still trumps the bad, because I still look at it with that sense of appreciation for the opportunities that are open to both Canadians and international students alike. I like a whole lot that sometimes you find in school, that you see something, maybe a workshop or a conference or this or that, and there's no segregation most of the time. A lot of the opportunities are just open to you as long as you're a student in a Canadian university. And I think that even it's not all the time that all those opportunities are monetary, but if they're for skill development, if they're for networking, if they are for language learning or whatever it is, it's very good to see how accommodating the country and the structure of things really is. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
what I
think
would say.
I think I 100% agree with you that it's a country in which you get the sense that you can really do anything, and there's no restraints. It doesn't feel that way. I think I'd always known, even because I left the States because I was thinking about my future and immigration plans and all that, and I thought Canada was I'd expected that Canada was the more welcoming, more open society than especially for foreigners. I think maybe I was in a bit of a rude awakening in Quebec compared to the rest of the Canada. Compared to, I think it was a bit of a shock because I hadn't read up much on, I kind of already started to get the sense for it, because I know like even applying, because I got admission into a different school in Alberta and I got an admission to a school in Quebec. And I remember it just being so much easier for that school compared to Quebec. So I was like, something's going on. I didn't really think it much. So I came here and they're like, oh, wow. So there's all this welcoming nest, but it's not in Quebec. It's not. So I think that was a bit of a shock. It's like, it's a very, of course, in Montreal, maybe you don't really get the sense, or maybe one doesn't really get the sense of how very nationalistic things can get and how very maybe sometimes exclusionary things can get. Even especially to the Anglophones, the English-speaking people. So I would say that was kind of a bit of a shock. Maybe I'd heard about it, but I think it was another thing to actually experience it and realize that, it was not as welcoming in that regard as I thought it would be. But one thing I really, really love and I'm really grateful is that I'm actually living in a city like Montreal. I think that, that is just been great. I didn't think that I would fall in love with a city like this, but it's been great. I moved in here from Boston and, I had my own notions of living in the city and the difficulties that came with that and all these expectations and, cost of living and things like this. And, Montreal just surpassed any, like just basically changed my mind on what cities could be. And I would say that was like a pleasant surprise.
I just wanted
Resonated
to add
with you.
something to what Tolu just said about being surprised. I remember when I came into Montreal, so I was like, yeah, this is my city, I'm going nowhere. Having lived in the country like America and all the uncertainties that comes with that country, yeah, for me, it was just like, yeah, I found home. And yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Oh, wow, this is so interesting. Yeah, I think for me, I didn't know so much about Montreal, but once I realized, okay, it's very French inclined, I just decided, hey, move on, try and learn the French and get yourself integrated, right? Because I think there's a viewpoint that you can have as an international student where you don't you see a lot of the challenges, and those challenges are actually valid, right? They're there, but you can also just be really sad and just go through the motions and just do the bare minimum. Or alternatively, you could just decide, you know what, might as well make the most of it, might as well just like try, have a positive disposition to it. It's not the easiest. And I know I'm saying it now, but you should have seen me in first year. I was just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What is happening, right? But it really took grace for me to get to the point where I could look at it and just say, you know what, you're here. There are beautiful things you can enjoy. There are many opportunities you can take advantage of. So why not just have a positive attitude, right? So, but I didn't get this. It didn't happen overnight. It took it took hardships, and then also telling yourself like, okay, you can't suffer and keep suffering. Like you have to find a way to make yourself happy. If you're going to be away from home,
Yep.
if you're going to be exposed to changes in your life, might as well just try to make yourself happy, right? So I think we want to talk about the academics, right? So what's it like studying abroad?
I would say that the academic difference wasn't there for America to Canada, but was there from Nigeria to Canada in the sense that, of course, everything is different. But of course, I also moved programs. So it was master's to PhD. And the loneliness that comes with the PhD program is amazing. So I think I had to learn that as well and be able to navigate all of it and use the resources that I had to my beck and call to make sure it was a good experience. I think that's the only thing that I learned better. Having got my experience from the US, having to do that here was easier because I just realized, okay, there are things that I can use to my advantage in the academic system. I should use it. What are the resources in writing? My supervisor is there, my friends, my colleagues, use them as much as you can to attain what you want to attain, which is getting this PhD. So that was my thought process. And there was no much difference for me. I would say it would be different if it would be sort of a life. I say, oh, there was a whole difference because I already got the experience from, doing my master's in the US. So having to come here was more of, okay, you know about the resources, tap into them and make sure you use them very well for yourself.
So I think the education system, I would say, because in Nigeria, I schooled in Nigeria very briefly at Coventry University. And I remember, I mean, well, as you would know, it's a very different system. And even coming to America to finish my undergrad, I would say again, it was it was a shift from what I had experienced in Nigeria, but I wouldn't say that it was such a substantial shift. It was, I mean, it was actually going into the PhD program, and I know I really struggled with this because now it's really not, oh, you can pass an exam or you can do this. It's a very, it's honestly, it's maybe the hardest thing I've ever done because there's a lot of uncertainty going on. You have to deal with that. And I remember truly for the first year or two, it was a struggle. I genuinely believed that I didn't belong in the program. I genuinely believed that the school had made some sort of mistake. I wasn't supposed to be there, and it was just a big struggle because I was just not even something that I don't think I was prepared for because I mean I could always do exams and pass exams. So this was different. This was a long-term project. This was a day-by-day thing. This was you know, this was not a linear path. This was not, oh, there's an exam at the end that you have to pass, and it's gonna happen at this date. It's very free flowing. It's literally a day-to-day thing. You're making day-to-day decisions that would 100% affect where you end up at the end of the day. And I think that lack of structure was very difficult to get accustomed to because now you have to impose structure on yourself and you have to find what the limits are. And you have to do it in such a way that you don't even overdo it. You have to do it in such a way that at the end, that everything like that you have to put in systems in place for yourself such that it works towards this goal that you're trying to achieve. And it took a lot of learning. And I don't even know that I'm where I want to be, but I have definitely made a lot of progress in that regard. So I think that was the very challenging thing was just dealing with this very amorphous, very, there's no structure. You have to figure out, maybe you stay till lab to 10 p.m. That's up to you. Maybe you stay till 1 p.m. That's up to you. You know, you know, like what's the best way to do this? How should I be doing this? And how do I know that I'm progressing and all of these things? I think that it was very challenging. It still is challenging, but we're getting there and we're getting better.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you about the lack of structure. Like you don't realize how much structure plays a role in education until you get into a system where there's nothing other than the fact that the term goes from September to December. So it's really up to you. It's challenging. I remember I struggled also with that the first few months because I guess I didn't realize that even the basics you had to learn yourself. There wasn't a class to say, oh, okay, so you do this, and then you kind of go from here. At best, I just had to take lab training workshops, and that was it. Everything else was just you figuring out what is A. You check on the internet, you check ResearchGate, you check Google Scholar. Sometimes you find yourself on Reddit and you
Yeah.
check, you just keep finding all these things by your own self and piecing the narrative together for your own self because nobody else is going to do it for you. And even when someone knows a technique, for example, in the sciences, in biological sciences, even when someone knows a technique, you find that they ask you a lot of questions like, oh, so what do you think your project will be about? And what do you think your samples would be dissolved in? And when you don't know those things, oh my goodness, you find out that there's a limit to how they can help you. I remember I had a
Yeah.
microscopy training session to book, and the officials of the center had been asking me, so what do you think you'll be working with? Do you think you would need this? What type of fluorophores? Oh wow. I was just I think I finished that meeting thinking I'm not even sure what all of this is. Like I don't
Mhm.
even know all these things you're asking me. I just know I'm supposed to get trained to use the microscope because I would need it at some point. But I don't know so much about all these things you're asking me, and some of those little things affects how your disposition is, right? Because when you have many negative experiences, you really start to get worried. And when you find yourself at points where your answer is, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, it starts to really affect you. Like, okay, so what do you do?
Yeah.
Right? So I
Yeah.
think how have I tried to improve so far? You just ask people, you try to know what you can, you try to figure out what is necessary to know. Whatever you cannot know, you leave it, right? And you just go from there, right?
Yeah.
And yes, you ask your colleagues lots of questions to the little bits that they can help you out with. And yeah, but I would say one of the major differences for me between my Nigerian education and coming here is um just that lack of structure.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just figure it out yourself.
Yep.
It's not like you don't end up figuring it out yourself. It's just that it really you start out figuring it out yourself. I think that's where the difference is. It's not
Exactly.
like anybody first
Exactly.
puts you through and then you go from there. It's really on the first day you start it out. So it's a whole mindset shift from being an undergrad where some of the things are told to you and you know what to do because there's a framework and there are people you can
Mhm.
ask. But here it's just you, this project, yourself, and your fate. And your
No.
fate is it really. So yeah. Now to the fun parts of how you relax with all this talk about work. How do you find the balance?
Mm. Well, for me, I always, and always would be for the rest of my life be big on music. It's such an integral part of my life. Just listening to music or even playing music. I don't know. It's just something that keeps me sane almost. It's just a way that honestly, and many times I'm just playing. I'm not even thinking. I don't know. I just feel like I'm just existing without thinking of, without this cloud that's hanging over my head. Because, I mean, you know how it is. There's almost always 24/7 this cloud that's hanging over your head. There's this thing, many times you're doing something and you feel guilty. Oh, I could be reading this, or I could be doing this, or I could have done this today and I didn't do this today. And it's just music has always, and will be an outlet for me to just exist, and just not have to worry about whatever is going on. And of course, there is my partner, who has basically been a godsend. It's just having somebody that understands where you're coming from, and somebody that understands what the wins are and what the losses are, and can really understand, because it really does help. And I just I try to do things for myself. I remember starting in the program, I would do, I'll leave earlier than I felt I was supposed to leave, and I would feel so terrible. And it was all the guilt. Um, because again, as you said, you were trying to figure out yourself in this program. You're trying to build a system, and you don't know, because again, it's very easy to get lost. You'll be doing 12, 14 hours that you don't need to do, and you're not even being productive, and you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, just so that you can feel better. It's just so that you can, you feel like, oh, I'm working towards this thing. But it's like taking time for yourself is also in fact contributing to this goal. It's something, it's taking time for yourself makes you productive too. I mean, you're killing two birds with one stone, and it takes like a mindset shift to get you to that point that it's okay to be able to take time and enjoy things. And yeah, so for me, it's music, it's spending time with my partner, it's just going out, and I love to see what Montreal has to offer. So I would try to do a few things here and there, and there's also the church and the community that's being fostered there. And I think these things just really make that cloud a little less cloudy, I would say.
When I first came to Montreal, what I used to do to take my mind off things was actually work out. Mostly, I go to the gym, work out, and like it was very good. It was helpful. And like Tolu said, music the best way to just distress. Then I learned to swim. I learned to skate, and those have become the activities. I enjoy to travel, so whenever I get the time, I get out of here and just go enjoy a new city. Those are like the big things for me. I think even while was during COVID too, what I did was, spend time on Zoom with my friends and work out. So it was quite interesting. And like Tolu said, the community that we built is so helpful because we have games that we hang out, we do this, we do that. It's also a way to like, be, and again, when you are among people, it's kind of lesser that stress of, oh, I'm alone, or the stress of school, or the stress of like even being in a new country all by yourself. It's taken away when you can be among your friends. Also, when you are able to do things that you love. For me, it was I enjoy reading. Anybody that knows me knows that. I would take time and read like while I'm, at the park when it's night out, or when I'm at the gym, I have my ears blocked and I'm listening to music or listening to a book. So those are the things that I kind of do. And now I've also learned to bike. So hopefully in the summer I'm able to do more biking to help my life, be better. But yeah, those are the things that I do so far that helps me generally. Yeah.
Like community health, because that's something that you find just helps you feel integrated. What do I like? I like music as well. I like to read, although I don't think I have had as much time for reading. I think almost last year, I think I just read one non-academic book from start to finish, like to actually see through to the end and imbibe what the book was talking about. So that for me was a major achievement, given how tough and how challenging life can be with PhD and French and other commitments here and there. Yeah, so going out with friends, going to a museum or an art space, I find that that's something I enjoy. Just discovering places that are affordable, and I like writing, so that helps me distress, or at least it puts me in a different headspace. I think that, and I also enjoy eating what I like, or like food, finding out really nice stuff that I like that's affordable and healthy. I like that. So there's a comfort that definitely comes from food, from music, from hobbies. All those things end up like contributing to making you feel like, okay, we can go at this again.
Truly, I
Yeah.
mean, good, affordable food is one of the highest pleasures in life. I 100% on the same page with you on that.
Yeah, so when you find
Yeah.
something really nice, and it's very motivating. I think two questions for you. One is, what would you say to your younger self? One is, what would you say to other international students?
To my younger self, I would say keep on being that inquisitive person and positive person that you are. Because I think where I am today has come from me pushing myself and saying, you can do this, daring to, push boundaries. And to every international student, I would say, you're doing a great job even taking that step away from your home country. That spirit, that mind, that goal that you want to achieve, keep keeping at it. It's not that difficult, you get it. Now, when I say it's not that difficult, doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. It's going to be hard. But by the time you achieve it, you're going to look back and be like, I did it after all. So let that goal keep driving you, and build a community. It's not the easiest thing, but build a community if you can, and hold on to whatever Nigerians will say chi, or whatever thing that keeps driving you, whatever is driving you. If you know God, if you know something, whatever it is that keeps you going, hold on to that thing, and that goal will be achieved no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what was said. I think that for international students coming into the program or coming in, really, I think that it's important to make a conscious effort to meet people, and to maybe even for people that I know might be uncomfortable with it. Um, speaking as someone you used to kind of be like that. I think it's good to just try to put yourself, maybe attend a club events or just do something, go to the school trips, put yourself in positions where you get to meet people like yourself, people that are going through the same thing that you're going through, or maybe can understand where you're coming from. Also, people that are different from you and people that have different mindsets and people that have, and I think it's quite one of the easiest ways, to really feel at home. I mean, people say home is where your friends are. And one of the quickest ways to really feel that sense of home and belonging is to have people in that area. And I think that's one thing that I would say to international students. Another thing is that you should, again, talk to people, know what your options are, because there are options. It might not seem like that. It might seem, oh my God, I have to do this, I have to do this, but maybe you don't have to do things that you shouldn't have to do. I think it's incredibly, incredibly important to talk to people that you can talk to, reach out to whoever. I think that these things would help. Now, what would I say to my younger self is that it's always good to have a plan. It's good to have some sense of direction in one's life, to know what it is that one would like to achieve. I think that, again, not even anything concrete, not, oh, okay, by this, I need to have done this, but just something that informs your decisions, informs your smallest decisions, because you have a goal that you're working towards, you know, and it's just, again, it's something that my younger self kind of knew at the back of his mind. It'd be nice to bring it to the front of his mind and say, hey, it's not just this passive thing. You should actually have a plan of as to where you want to go and then make decisions towards that. Occasionally it just really, really helps, so that you're not taking random walks and you're not going left to right and just, blowing wherever the wind takes you. I think that would be, and also I try to build stronger, ties to people and, invest in relationships. It really does matter. It really does yield returns. I think would be my advice.
The future is bright. I think the future is brighter than you know. That's maybe what I'll tell my younger, more afraid self. Yeah, that the future is brighter than you know, really. And I would also say you should know that you would change, like be okay with change. Because I realized that many of the struggles, upon reflection, I realized that a lot of the things I struggled with when I came here, it was because I think I guess I either wasn't aware that it's okay to change, or I wasn't even aware of the fact that I needed to change. So sometimes it was the case of, hey, you need to change your disposition. But until I had suffered a little bit, then I would realize that. And then some other times it was that I didn't even, I guess I was feeling guilty about the fact that I was trying to change my disposition about something. So maybe recognizing that hard work isn't always smart work, or working the long hours isn't always smart work, because I had suffered burnouts, right? So feeling guilty, but not being able to courageously change on time. That was something that it took some time to adjust to. So being open
Yeah.
to change, and the future is brighter than you know. Then for international students, I think I would also just say that it, just as Tolu said, it really helps to just envision your life, or maybe just write down some of the things you want to achieve with the program. So if you're coming in and you're saying that, oh, I want to actually get this degree, right? But I want to grow this my other hobby, or I want to grow this other skill. I know a friend who now is trying to build her public speaking skills in addition to doing a PhD in engineering. And I don't even think she preempted it necessarily, but it was something her supervisor advised her on. And she was like, yeah, I've never even really thought about, I should actually build this, right? So even if it's just one thing that you say, oh, okay, in addition to this, my program, I want to do this other thing, get better at French, or know this hobby, or just not quit at this my other hobby that I've always liked because things have gotten tough. Because that's another thing too, right? Sometimes you're packing on the new, but maybe it's just, hey, there are some things you always do, right? Try to even continue to do the things you always do without quitting, because there'll be so many temptations to quit. So I think that's what I would say. And having an open heart, looking at the country you're in with a sense of expectation that, hey, you know what? Yes, I might be an international student here. Yes, there might be more people like me, or there might not even be people like me, but you know what? My path is open before me, and I can find what it is that God has prepared for me. Just have an open heart. That, I think that's just, having an open heart really helps you, because you find out your own opportunities when you have an open heart. Yeah, just quick question. How do you see the future? 5 years? If you've seen up to 10 years, you can tell us.
I mean, I'm excited for I see the future with excitement. I have goals that I'm looking forward to achieving in terms of and I think that I like what you said about being open and being open to change, right? And being open to, because I think a lot of times we have these idea of ourselves, and we're so rigid in our image of what we think we are or what we're supposed to be. And I think that looking into the future, I I I I'm open to the possibilities, and I'm excited to see where life takes me. I'm open to change. I'm excited. I think, yeah, I have a vision for how I hope things will go, and I know, of course, that it's not always going to be how you picture it. That's what life is. There would always be surprises, I guess. Um, but we just have to be in the proper state to be able to process these things and adapt as necessary and adapt as needed.
My goal is to be in academia. My goal is to remain in the academia world, and I hope I'm able to maintain that, and I'm able to also be impact in people's lives. Because one of my biggest thing is being able to give back to the community that I am a part of is one of my goals, and I'm hoping that I'm able to do that and do that well, in a sense that people who are from maybe middle or low income countries are able to benefit from me gaining a PhD in this country, or the experiences that I have gotten, being able to share that back with students is one of my biggest goals. And I hope in the next 5 years I've impacted in other students' life. Like I feel like this country has earned or given to me. And I hope that the other things in my head that I think I've written down or I've thought about comes out that same way, working as a physical therapist, and I'm hoping that I hope I'm able to tap into that. And in 5 years' time, I'll be able to tell myself that, yes, I really did tap into the world that I've been offered, and give back to the community that I believe that need a lot of support and guidance, just the same way I need it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Yeah, that's we achieve our personal goals, but we also look forward to giving back and helping other people just like us, and other people who might have struggled just like us as well. Yeah. I think for me too, it's just like advancing in the next 5 years professionally, personally, in all the areas of life that I hope to, finishing my PhD and proceeding with a multifaceted career, so corporate world, creative world, something like that, a fusion of that. Yeah, I look forward to that, and look forward to the future with optimism that everything will be fine. Might not go as you plan as usual, but it's
Yep.
it's going to be okay. As I used to say to myself last year in French, when things were getting tough, je vais bien aller. So that's like, I'm going to be okay, right? Je vais bien aller.
Ça va bien aller. Yes, that's correct. True.
So yeah, I'll be okay. I'll be okay, hopefully. Yeah.